suspension was discussed both at a committee level and at the board, and ultimately the league office was tasked by our board with doing an in-depth.
Hello everyone. Welcome back to another exciting and interesting video. Today, we've got something you definitely don't want to miss. So without wasting any more time, let's jump right into it. Alright. Professional basketball has suddenly changed in a way that nobody saw coming. And at the center of it all is one name that has been dominating conversations for months: Caitlin Clark. Behind the scenes, one of the most influential figures in the sport was preparing a much bigger move while everyone else was focused on statistics, shooting percentages, and on-court performances. Adam Silver has officially stepped into the picture, and the decision he reportedly made involving Caitlin Clark has sent shockwaves through league front offices. For years, the WNBA operated with a slow-growth mentality and a strict set of limitations. But that era began to change when Silver started viewing the league not as a side project, but as a major part of the NBA's future. The harsh reality behind this decision goes far beyond marketing and jersey sales. Not everyone is happy with the new structure because it represents a major shift in how the league is being governed. The sudden change in priorities feels like a slap in the face to veterans who spent decades building the WNBA into what it is today. But from a business perspective, the numbers explain everything. Silver reportedly came to the conclusion that the Caitlin Clark phenomenon was far more than a temporary trend. It represented billion-dollar potential, and protecting that potential became a priority. This was not simply a suggestion or a gentle push toward the WNBA leadership. It represented a major shift that could influence marketing, officiating, scheduling, and even travel across the league. Silver appeared willing to put traditional thinking aside in pursuit of massive financial growth, leaving everyone else to figure out where they fit into this new global basketball landscape. When Clark first stepped onto a professional court, everyone expected there to be a learning curve. What nobody expected was the level of hostility that seemed to follow her everywhere. The traditional welcome to the league moments began looking less like normal competition and more like deliberate physical punishment. From mid-court collisions to hard fouls that looked more like football tackles, the attention surrounding Clark quickly became impossible to ignore. If you appreciate this content, consider giving this video a like and subscribing to the channel. Believe it or not, more than 87% of viewers still haven't subscribed. It's completely free, takes only a second, and it means the world to us. Music. So, did you subscribe already? Great. Thank you so much for the support. Now, let's get back to the video. At that point, league officials faced a decision that could shape the future of the sport for the next decade. According to reports, Silver concluded that the old let-them-play mentality could be damaging to the league's business interests after watching its biggest attraction repeatedly take hard hits. Any veteran who attempted to establish herself as an enforcer against the rookie sensation could suddenly find herself under intense scrutiny. That decision created a massive divide inside locker rooms, with some players believing the rules were being adjusted in real time to protect one particular star. But the ratings help explain why the league would make such a controversial move. Clark's games were attracting dramatically more attention than ordinary contests, and the league could not afford to watch its biggest commercial asset disappear from the court because of an avoidable injury. As a result, the style of play began changing. The game became faster, higher scoring, and more focused on the perimeter. And that happens to be exactly the type of basketball Silver has spent years promoting throughout the NBA. Music. Then came the controversy surrounding the Olympic selection process, where the tension reached another breaking point. It was a moment many supporters have still not forgotten. On the surface, it appeared to be a basketball decision based on experience and hierarchy. But critics began questioning whether there was a deeper and more calculated explanation for Clark's exclusion. Rumors circulated that league leadership, allegedly influenced by NBA executives, preferred to keep its biggest young star at home. But why would anyone want the WNBA's brightest attraction to miss the international stage? The explanation offered by critics was simple: control and fatigue management. By keeping Clark in the United States, the league would maintain greater control over her schedule and storyline while reducing the risk of burnout before the most valuable portion of the season. It was a calculated decision that appeared to prioritize the league's financial future over the development of one player's international legacy. To many fans, the decision felt disappointing because it suggested that Clark's natural progression as a global star was not necessarily the priority of the people making these decisions. Instead, the focus appeared to be maximizing every minute of her availability while the league prepared to capitalize on its massive new media opportunities. Fans felt betrayed by the immediate consequences, but commercially, the strategy appeared to produce exactly what the league wanted: a rested and motivated superstar returning to the court and continuing to attract record-breaking attention. And speaking of the television deal, The reported $2.2 billion agreement dramatically changed the financial conversation surrounding women's basketball. For years, the WNBA was viewed as a league that struggled to generate enough revenue to stand completely on its own. But as the Clark effect exploded, the league suddenly had a powerful new bargaining chip when negotiating with major media companies. The uncomfortable part of this transformation was that it appeared to reduce the traditional WNBA leadership structure to more of a supporting role. Silver's involvement effectively sent a message that the WNBA was no longer simply a developmental league operating in the NBA's shadow. It was becoming a critical piece of the NBA's international media strategy. That means better production quality, more national television exposure, and a move away from the league's previous niche sports identity. The NBA's corporate machine is now paying much closer attention, and while that financial investment could eventually benefit players through higher salaries and better opportunities, it also means that every controversy receives significantly more attention. Technical fouls, social media arguments, locker room disputes, and player rivalries can now become major stories in the same way narratives surrounding LeBron James or Steph Curry have dominated the NBA. The league has become a much bigger business asset, and Silver's message appears clear. Anyone who refuses to adapt to the new professional standard risks being left behind. One of the most obvious changes during this new era was the sudden push toward charter travel. WNBA players spent years dealing with the realities of commercial flights, including cramped seats, long security lines, delays, and exhausting travel schedules. Cost was always one of the biggest explanations. But as Clark's popularity created larger crowds and increased security concerns, the league's approach began changing rapidly. Teams were suddenly pushed toward better travel operations, with significant money being committed to private flights. From a player health and safety perspective, this was an enormous victory. But smaller market teams faced serious financial pressure because they were not necessarily prepared for such a dramatic increase in expenses. And comfort was not the only factor behind the decision.
It was a statement.
Silver was effectively telling the world that the WNBA could no longer be treated like a second-tier professional league. If the league wanted to market itself as a major global sports brand, it needed to operate like one, even if that meant spending money before all of the additional revenue had arrived. The spend now and grow later philosophy is a familiar strategy in professional sports, but for the WNBA, it represented a dramatic and potentially risky departure from the way the league had traditionally operated. Then came perhaps the most controversial part of the new strategy: accelerated expansion. Silver and league leadership want the WNBA to grow, not simply survive. With new teams and markets emerging, concerns have already been raised about whether the league could expand faster than its talent pool. Existing players could soon face expansion drafts, roster changes, and an entirely different competitive balance. And the motivation behind the rapid expansion is obvious. The league wants to take advantage of the Clark era while the spotlight is at its brightest. More teams mean more jerseys, more games, more markets, more sponsors, and more media inventory. What shocked many people was how quickly the gradual growth philosophy seemed to disappear once Clark became one of the biggest names in professional sports. Music. Current players are also wondering what the next collective bargaining agreement could look like as the league grows faster than the players' union can respond. At the same time, the league's approach to rivalry and jealousy storylines has transformed its internal culture. The WNBA once emphasized unity, sisterhood, and collective progress. But the modern sports business understands one simple principle: drama sells. Instead of constantly trying to minimize the tension between Clark and other prominent young stars such as Angel Reese, the league can benefit from allowing that rivalry to become part of the entertainment. Social media engagement increases. Ticket sales increase. Viewership increases. And suddenly, what once might have been treated as an uncomfortable storyline becomes a marketing opportunity. The NBA-style approach to WNBA marketing has created plenty of internal tension. Some players feel as though they are being turned into villains in order to strengthen the narrative surrounding the league's newest superstar. But the results are difficult to ignore. The league's willingness to embrace conflict-driven marketing has created a level of attention that would have been difficult to imagine only a few years ago. As the latest wave of decisions continues to unfold, the commissioner's office appears to be sending a clear message. The WNBA is no longer being treated as a small developmental project. Market value has become just as important as tradition, and the old idea of slowly earning your place in the sports industry is colliding with a new reality where commercial potential can change everything overnight. Music. In what feels like a single season, Silver's influence has accelerated the league's development by years. And despite the obvious growing pains, the potential rewards are enormous. Every decision involving Caitlin Clark now represents something bigger than one player. It represents a possible blueprint for the future of women's basketball. There may be no going back. Whether you support this new direction or miss the more closely connected culture of the past, the decisions being made today are creating a league that could eventually have a cultural impact comparable to the NBA. And this transformation began the moment league leadership decided that its most valuable young star needed to be protected and maximized at all costs. Players may be frustrated. Veterans may be angry. Fans may be divided. But the world is watching the WNBA more closely than ever. And in the modern sports business, attention is the currency that matters most. These decisions could have long-term consequences, especially if the next generation of players begins viewing the WNBA as a legitimate and highly profitable professional career instead of a dream that comes with financial uncertainty. The conflict between the new generation and the old guard is not going away. If anything, the stakes are only going to become higher, and the league's decision-making process could become even more aggressive. Silver has placed his bets, and now everyone involved in basketball has to decide how they will respond. Music. The biggest question is whether the WNBA can preserve its identity while chasing the enormous opportunities now sitting directly in front of it. One thing is certain, the version of the WNBA we knew a year ago is rapidly being replaced by a faster, more dramatic, and potentially far more profitable version of the game. And the biggest question now is how far the commissioner is willing to go to make sure the Caitlin Clark era never ends. Because the moves that shocked the league today may only be the beginning of a much larger transformation that could reshape women's sports around the world. The changes in officiating alone have already created tension inside locker rooms. Imagine spending a decade playing an aggressive physical style of basketball, only to suddenly be told that even breathing on a rookie could result in a foul. Silver's message was reportedly straightforward: protect the shooter. Clark may have been the catalyst, but the strategy was about more than just one player. League officials understood that casual viewers were not necessarily tuning in to watch wrestling matches disguised as basketball. They wanted fast transitions, long-range threes, big plays, and highlights that could spread across social media within minutes. By tightening the whistle, Silver effectively pushed the WNBA toward the same offense-friendly philosophy that has transformed the NBA. Coaches who built their defensive identities around physicality naturally viewed the change as frustrating. Some had spent years developing systems around aggressive defense, only to suddenly find themselves adjusting their strategies within weeks. The rapid enforcement of the new approach was almost as shocking as the philosophy itself. Officials who embraced the open, fast-paced style received more attention, while referees who struggled to adapt faced greater scrutiny. The result was paranoia throughout the league. Some players believed the system was becoming biased toward its newest superstar because they felt that even normal physical contact with Clark could trigger an immediate reaction from officials. League leadership, however, could see it differently. Why allow a player capable of shooting from 40 feet to spend an entire possession trapped in a physical battle? The goal is to give her the freedom to create the highlights that dominate social media. Silver understands the economics behind that viral economy. Every spectacular Clark shot can generate millions of views, and every viral moment increases the league's value. But the price of that growth could be the alienation of defensive specialists who now feel as though their style belongs to an older era. According to claims surrounding leaked internal discussions, entertainment value was increasingly being placed ahead of traditional basketball grit. For some people, that represented the ultimate betrayal of the WNBA's original identity. The league was built around earning every possession, fighting for every basket, and making life difficult for opponents. Now, critics worry that it is becoming a polished entertainment product designed to showcase one superstar. But first-time viewers are not necessarily concerned about the league's history. They want the show. They want excitement. They want to feel like they are witnessing something special. And Silver appears determined to make that experience as exciting and polished as possible. Music. The league's best defenders are now facing a strange psychological challenge. They know that a hard foul on Clark does not simply result in free throws. It could turn them into the villain of a week-long media cycle. That psychological pressure is part of the new reality. The league can influence the product without officially changing every rule simply by creating an environment where stars are treated differently. From the Jordan era through the LeBron era, the NBA took decades to understand how powerful star-driven basketball could be. The WNBA is experiencing that transformation in real time, potentially within a single season. The system is being shaken from the ground up. Music. Teams are being forced to reconsider almost every aspect of their scouting reports. Do you continue playing aggressive physical defense, or do you simply try to outscore the opponent? Increasingly, the answer appears to be the second option. Television partners want high-scoring games because casual viewers tend to respond to offense, speed, and highlight plays. Silver's strategy delivers the type of product that resembles the modern NBA. And the financial consequences could be enormous. As revenue rises, the salary cap should eventually follow. 5 years from now, some of the players complaining about the changes today could potentially be the same players benefiting from dramatically larger contracts. But right now, the transition is uncomfortable. Veterans are the ones absorbing much of the disruption, especially those whose identities and careers were built around physical defense. They are being asked to make room for a new era, and the league office's approach has not always felt gentle. Lines are being drawn. Silver's team appears to be making one thing clear: you either adapt to the new vision or risk being left behind. In the past, the WNBA often operated through a more collaborative relationship between players and league leadership. This kind of top-down corporate urgency represents something different. Music, the collegial atmosphere has increasingly been replaced by the feeling that the league cannot afford to waste its current window of opportunity. That helps explain why the decisions surrounding Clark have been so controversial. They represent the transition from a relatively small, player-driven league into a major international media property. And the effects are being felt throughout the basketball world. The WNBA is becoming more attractive to international players who want to participate in the Clark phenomenon, while overseas leagues are watching closely to see how this new business model develops. Clark herself is under enormous pressure. She is no longer simply a basketball player. She has become the center of an entire industry. Every decision involving her is examined for favoritism, and almost every action she takes is analyzed under a microscope. But Silver has continued moving forward. He appears to understand that history will judge this period primarily by what the league becomes, not simply by how comfortable the transition felt for the people who built it. Professional sports are a business first and a game second, and that is the harsh reality. The WNBA is operating more like a high-stakes global company than ever before, and the results are impossible to ignore. It took a rookie from Iowa and a commissioner with a highly calculated vision to accelerate this transformation. The future may now be more promising than anyone could have imagined. The game is faster. The stakes are higher. And the path forward has been filled with decisions that have shaken the foundation of the sport. The questions only become more complicated from here. Music. When the next major young talent enters the league, how will they be treated? Will they receive the same level of attention, promotion, and protection? Or is this a Clark-specific experiment that will never be repeated? The league's internal dynamics continue to evolve, and its competitors are watching every move. But one thing is becoming increasingly clear: the WNBA is no longer simply trying to catch up. It is attempting to set the pace. Once the initial shock wears off, a new reality will emerge where today's controversial decisions could become tomorrow's standard operating procedure. The league made the choices it believed were necessary to survive, grow, and prosper. And in doing so, it may have permanently changed the game.